ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्यनामने गौरतुसे नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। So we welcome everyone for uh, we welcome everyone for today's discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So today we are discussing from Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, verse number 12. So last 2 days we are discussing from verse number 12. नतु एवहं जातु नास्मि न त्वं न इमे जनाधिपा न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम्. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So Lord Krishna explains in this verse that he himself and Arjuna and all the warriors or kings who are present there, uh, they were always in existence. They are in existence individually. In the past, they existed individual soul. Present, they are existing as individual soul. And in the future also, they will be existing as individual soul. So there is no question of merging with each other. This is the greatest misconception when one thinks that he is going to get merged in Brahman. So Brahman never merges into another Brahman. This should be very much clear, because Brahman or the spirit soul is spiritual in nature, and one of the characteristics of spirit soul is that it cannot be cut into pieces. So if it cannot be cut into pieces, so how can it get merged into? Uh, it cannot be merged also. It cannot be. It is not soluble. So this is a great misconception which Lord Krishna, in the very beginning of his teaching to Arjuna, he is refuting this greatest misconception of Mayavad, that the soul merges. So this we discussed yesterday. And Srila Prabhupada is quoting from Shvetasvatara Upanishad and Katha Upanishad, where the distinction between the two kinds of living entities have been explained. Nityo Nityanam, Chetana Chetananam, Eko Bahunam Yu Vidadhati Kama. So although Nityo Nityanam, Nitya Nitya, all the living entities are also Nitya, and the Supreme Soul is also Nitya. All the living entities are also Chetan, conscious, and the Supreme Soul is also conscious. So these two things are the similarity. So although there is similarity, but still in this Katha Upanishad, in this verse, these two things have been mentioned, Nityo Nityanam. And then naturally the difference arises. What is the difference? Eko Bahunamya Vidadhati Kama. The difference is that one supreme eternal being, Vidadhati Kaman, maintains and provides, fulfills the desires or needs of Bahunam. Eko means that one supreme eternal being takes care of the needs of Bahunam, many minute eternal beings, conscious spiritual beings. And one who understands this fact, tam atmaistam yanupashanti dhira, such a person is actually intelligent or dhira. He tesham santi shashvati. He actually attains the perfect peace. So the same Vedic truth given to Arjuna is given to all persons in the world who pose themselves as very learned, but factually have but a poor fund of knowledge. The Lord says clearly that he himself, Arjuna, and all the kings who are assembled on the battlefield are eternally individual beings, and that the Lord is eternally the maintainer of the individual living entities, both in their conditioned and in their liberated situations. So the same Vedic truth, which is explained in this Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, Krishna is also explaining the same thing in Bhagavad Gita. That's why Bhagavad Gita is also Upanishad, Gita Upanishad. Sripad Sankaracharya, Adi Sankaracharya, he himself, he has declared Bhagavad Gita as Gita Upanishad. But there are many followers of Sankaracharya who are not willing to accept some of the important verses of Bhagavad Gita. But Bhagavad Gita has been accepted as Upanishad. Upanishad means it is also a Shruti. It is known as Smriti because it is a part of Mahabharata. Mahabharata was written by Vedvyas. But factually, the knowledge which has been given in the Bhagavad Gita, that is given by the Supreme Original Narayan Lord Krishna himself. That's why Bhagavad Gita can be considered as a Shruti, or as good as Vedic mantra, or as good as Upanishad. Considering these facts, Adi Sankaracharya, he mentioned that Bhagavad Gita is also Upanishad. So the same Vedic truth has been explained by Arjuna, by Krishna, to all the people. But unfortunately, those with poor fund of knowledge, they cannot understand this fact, which is very simple and clear in this verse. Krishna is explaining that all the living entities, they exist eternally as individual beings. There is no question of merging into each other. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Individual Person, and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal associate, and all the kings assembled there are individual eternal persons. This is what is explained in this verse. It is not that they did not exist as individuals in the past, and it is not that they will not remain eternal persons. This is a misconception, which Mayavadi misconception they propagate this. That they say that at present we have individuality because of this material body. But in the past, when we did not have material body, we were one. And in the future also, after getting liberated from material bondage, we will become one. So this misconception has been refuted by Krishna in this particular verse, because Krishna, he clearly says, Nattu eva aham jatunasam. There was never a time when I did not exist, you did not exist, and all these things did not exist. So he specifically mentions clearly that I myself, you Arjuna, and all these kings and soldiers. In the past, there was never a time when we did not exist. So Krishna certainly, he is addressing for all the time period. For eternity, Krishna is addressing. He is not just telling about the material body. So their individuality existed in the past, and their individuality will continue in the future without interruption. Therefore, there is no cause for lamentation for anyone. So this is the basis of the science of soul, that all the living entities, they exist all the time individually. That's why there is no cause for lamentation. The Mayavadi theory that after liberation, the individual soul, separated by the covering of Maya or illusion, will merge into the impersonal Brahman and lose its individual existence, is not supported herein by Lord Krishna, the Supreme Authority. So that's why Srila Vyasadeva, when he is writing this Bhagavad Gita, so when Krishna spoke, he writes Sri Bhagavan Vach. There may be many great scholar, Pandit, and philosophers who may give different opinions and philosophies, but whose opinion and conclusion or philosophy can be accepted? Only and only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he is the supreme authority. The Sri Bhagavan Vacha means he is supreme authority. No other authority is equal or above him. His version is final version. So that's why Sri Bhagavan Vacha. And the supreme authority Krishna has. Krishna is not at all supporting this bogus misconception theory that after liberation, the living entity merges into the impersonal Brahman. This is completely imaginative theory. It is not at all correct. So nor is the theory that we only think of individuality in the conditioned state supported herein. Krishna clearly says herein that in the future also the individuality of the Lord and others, as it is confirmed in the Upanishads, will continue eternally. This statement of Krishna's is authoritative because Krishna cannot be subject to illusion. If individuality were not a fact, then Krishna would not have stressed it so much, even for the future. The Mayavadi may argue that the individuality spoken of by Krishna is not spiritual but material. Even accepting the argument that the individuality is material, then how can one distinguish Krishna's individuality? So this is another important point, uh, that individuality has been explained and accepted by Krishna for all the time in this particular verse. So some of the Mayavadi, they object, they argue that the individuality mentioned in this verse is on material basis. That means Krishna is mentioning about the individuality on the basis of material body. As long as a living entity has this material body, till that time they have individual existence. And as soon as whenever the living entity becomes free from material conditioning, she is not individual, she merges. So this is what they argue. But uh, our Vaishnavacharyas, they give two counter argument over this, which is very much reasonable. They say, first one is that Krishna, when he is explaining about the individuality of the living entity, he is mentioning his own individuality also. And elsewhere, in the upcoming chapters, 4 chapters, Krishna establishes himself to be transcendental. Janma karma cha me divyam. That means Krishna's body, Krishna's existence is not at all material. So if the individuality mentioned in this particular verse is material, then how one can explain the individuality of Krishna? Because it cannot be material. That means in simple terms, if we can say, in simple terms, simple words, we can say that the individuality which Krishna is emphasizing in this particular verse is not on the basis of material thing, material body, because Krishna's body is not material. This Krishna explains in 4th chapter. Sambhavami Atma Maya. Yeah. Atma Maya means my spiritual potency. By my spiritual potency, I appear from time to time. That means I do not accept material body. Elsewhere in the next chapters, coming chapters, Krishna says, Avajananti mam modham manusim tanumachtam. Those who think that I accept material form of human life, human body, they are mistaken. Avajananti, they do not know the truth about me. Param bhavam, ajananto, they do not know my superior nature. That means this form, this two-handed form which I have assumed, only foolish people think that this is also material. No, my body is not material. So it is already a proven fact on the basis of Bhagavad Gita that Krishna's body, Krishna's form is not at all material. So when Krishna in this particular verse, when he is telling that I myself existed individually in the past, I am existing individually in the present, and I will continue to exist in the future also as individual being. And you, Arjuna, also, and all these kings, all of you were also existing in the past, are existing at the present, and will exist in the future also as individual being. That means Krishna's individuality and Arjuna's individuality, as well as all the king's individuality, is not on the basis of material body. It is based on a spiritual existence. That is spiritually, that means spirit soul, the living entity, is spiritually all the living entities. They were individual and they are individual and they will be individual. That means there is no question of merging with each other. This is first counter argument given by our Vaishnavacharyas. And the second counter argument is, which is also very important. In the previous verse, already in the previous verse, verse number 11, Krishna has condemned the material conception of life. Krishna all clearly told, Asochananva sochastvam pragyavadamsha bhasase gatasuna gatasumsha nanu sochanti pandita. Those who are pandit, learned person, they do not lament over material existence. They do not lament over material body. They are actually Pandita, learned person. So that means Krishna has condemned the material concept of life in verse number 11. So is it then in the next verse number 12, when Krishna is mentioning about the individuality of all the living entities, so he cannot base his argument on the basis of material concept of life, because he has already condemned this inferior quality of consciousness, which is material consciousness. So he cannot base his argument on the basis of material concept of life, considering the self to be material body. So this is also very much clear. So these two counter arguments are very, very powerful enough to refute the Mayavadi conception that the individuality which Krishna is mentioning in this particular verse is based on material body. So this is not at all based on material body. So Krishna affirms his individuality in the past and confirms his individuality in the future also. He has confirmed his individuality in many ways. An impersonal Brahman has been declared to be subordinate to him. Krishna has maintained his spiritual individuality all along. If he is accepted as an ordinary conditioned soul in individual consciousness, then his Bhagavad Gita has no value as authoritative scripture. A common man with all the four defects of human frailty is unable to teach that which is worth sharing. The Gita is above such literature. No mundane book compares with the Bhagavad Gita. When one accepts Krishna as an ordinary man, the Gita loses all importance. The Mayavadi argues that the plurality mentioned in this verse is conventional and that it refers to the body. But previous to this verse, such a bodily conception is already condemned. After condemning the bodily conception of the living entities, how was it possible for Krishna to place a conventional proposition on the body again? Therefore, individuality is maintained on spiritual grounds and is thus confirmed by great acharyas like Sripad, Ramanujacharya and others. It is clearly mentioned in many places in the Gita that this spiritual individuality is understood by those who are devotees of the Lord. So in the Bhagavad Gita, many places Krishna explains very much these things very clearly. So although everything is clear cut, no confusion at all, everything is very reasonable, but only devotees can understand these facts. That's why Krishna said, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yasyasmi tatvataha. Tatvataha means understanding existence about the living entities, the Supreme Lord, the material existence, the spiritual existence in principle, tattvata, in truth. That is tattvata. And who can understand? Bhaktya mam. Only devotees can understand. And that's why this is the bare minimum qualification to get the proper understanding of Bhagavad Gita. That is, one should be a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to the great literature. On the other hand, those who are non-devotee, who have envy toward Krishna, so they have no access for this great literature. The non-devotee's approach to the teaching of the Gita is something like that of a bee licking on a bottle of honey. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, she used to say that when a non-devotee's approach to teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam is like a bee who is trying to lick the honey from outside, honey bottle. He is licking the honey bottle. So what taste will be there? There will be no taste. There will be no taste. One cannot taste the honey from outside. So this is something like that. Without becoming a devotee, one cannot actually taste the real nectar or truth of Bhagavad Gita. So one cannot have a taste of honey unless one opens the bottle. Similarly, the mysticism of the Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees, and no one else can taste it, as it is stated in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Janma karma chame divyam evam yogeti tatvata. Nor can the Gita be touched by persons who envy the very existence of the Lord. Therefore, the Mayavadi explanation of the Gita is a most misleading presentation of the whole truth. Lord Chaitanya has forbidden us to read commentations made by the Mayavadis and warns that one who takes to such an understanding of the Mayavadi philosophy loses all power to understand the real mystery of the Gita. That's why those who are envious of the Supreme Lord, they cannot actually understand Bhagavad Gita properly. And that's why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declared that the Mayavadi explanation of Bhagavad Gita is most misleading presentation of the truth. And anyone who reads the commentaries given by Mayavadi, his spiritual life is doomed. His spiritual life is doomed. Finished. Mayavadi भाष्य सुन ले हाय सर्वनाश. Finished. If individuality refers to the empirical universe, then there is no need of teaching by the Lord. The plurality of the individual soul and the Lord is an eternal fact, and it is confirmed by the Vedas as above mentioned. So everything is very clear cut. Srila Prabhupada has quoted verses from Shvetasvatara Upanishad and Katha Upanishad also in order to prove this. Okay, so with this we'll stop. So in this particular verse, Krishna has established the fact that all the living entities, Krishna, Arjuna, and all the kings, they were always existing, they are existing, and they will continue to exist in the future. So there is no cause of lamentation for killing just the outer body, outer dress. So Arjuna should not lament over this. Rather, he should very enthusiastically fight and execute his dharma duty. Okay, so thank you very much. With this, we'll stop. If there are any questions, you can ask. Hare Krishna.
Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, just want to ask very important question that how to make the Gita book the most favorite thing in our life, means like from day start to day end, means how can we addicted to it? I want that addiction in my life. Hare Krishna.
See, if we follow in the footsteps of great acharyas, and if we try to understand Bhagavad Gita from them by reading their purpose, then we can actually understand it very clearly, and uh, and we can develop the taste for reading Bhagavad Gita. And as we already mentioned, only devotees have a bona fide access for the truth mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. So one has to become a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Then only he can actually release the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So that's why we practice sadhan bhakti by chanting Krishna's holy name, by serving him, by hearing about him. So when we become completely free from all the envy, all the non-devotional elements from our heart, when all those elements are eliminated, then we can actually access the real truth of Bhagavad Gita, and then it is nectar. Just like that South Indian Brahmin. He was simply by reading the verses of Bhagavad Gita, he was crying. Same Bhagavad Gita, Mayavadis, they they read, they study, they give commentaries, the entire life they speak so many nonsense things, but they can never experience love for Krishna. Rather, they deny the very existence of the personality of the Supreme Lord Krishna. On the other hand, a pure devotee like that South Indian Brahmin, simply by reading, reciting the verses, he was experiencing such a great bliss in love of Krishna. Hare Krishna. Is there any Asura inside us that resists me reading it with so love? Yes. So we have demons within our heart, and the greatest demon is all those non-devotional element which we have within our heart. So by taking shelter of Krishna's pure devotee, Acharyas like Srila Prabhupada, when we hear from them, then all those non-devotional devotional elements which are like demons, they are killed, then we can love Krishna properly. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Desatadane. One of Srila Prabhupada's disciple, they mention that this heart is also Desha. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ishvaraha Sarva Bhutanam Riddeshe Arjuna Tishtati Riddesh. The heart is known as Riddesh. So, Srila Prabhupada came. If we bring Srila Prabhupada in this Desha, country, heart, region of heart, Riddeshe, then by his mercy, Shunyavadi Paschat, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Desha Tarine. So all the Nirvishesha, Shunyavad and Paschat means fallen condition, attraction for sinful activity. This is all destroyed. Tarini. So he delivers. So the explanation, devotional, pure devotional explanations by a pure devotee, they destroy the misconceptions, impersonal misconception and voidism misconception and fallen misconception. Then we can release the nectar of Bhagavad. Okay. Hare Krishna. So thank you very much. We'll stop. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna.